Jesse, how's it going, brother?
Oh man, glad to be here.
Yeah, man, you're in Florida. I was just down there hanging out with you. I mean, not,
Yeah,
not quite directly, but,
little off. Yeah, I'm
Man,
more of the lower Alabama area.
Miami got me, man. I got sunburn. Like I'm, working back my energy. But Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you've been up to over the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, been doing real estate for about 7 years. Former military guy. Intel, was fortunate enough to get picked up by some special operations unit.
Yeah, you got your flag behind you there.
Yeah, it's been all around the world with me. My old beret I used to wear. But yeah, it's been a pretty fun career. The end of it, all I did was drink tea and talk to other generals and piece together Arabic on my side and try to get them to take care of their own stuff. Afterwards, started getting into real estate because I knew like the power of real estate. Right, I read the statistics that 90% of millionaires come from real estate. But by doing that, I've done about 30 different projects now: apartment complexes, mobile home parks, joint venture partners, institutional partners. During this process, we realized, like, holy cow, we can have a huge impact on people's lives. And so that now it's what I'm entirely focused on now is actually impact investing and changing people's lives through investing in a for-profit manner, so we can keep doing it over and over and over again.
Doing a little good while you do well. I like it.
Yeah.
Take me back to the beginning, man. How did you get started in the military? What was the decision-making process to go into the military?
Man, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do in my life.
Me too, but somehow I started a business, so.
Yeah. No, so I had all these ideas, I think I changed my college degree path like 4 or 5 times now, full ride for biomedical engineering. And then I was like, I don't like this. I don't know how to code and I hate coding. So I changed that to pre-med and then I changed that to business. And I changed that, it's just over and over and over again. So I kind of needed some structure. And I saw this opportunity to jump into the Air Force and kind of got talked into it.
So you were already in college at that point in time, like?
Yeah, the community colleges back and forth, and I got went to Baylor for a couple of years there, and yeah, so that's when I went full.
So I know a lot of just like a lot of young people are like, I don't know what to do, so they instantly go into the military and they'll do 4 years, 8 years, or something like that. But you kind of bounce around through the college thing first.
Right. Yeah, and I did reserves too, so I was full time for 2 years, 3 years. Then I was part time when I went back to college, and then I realized actually I'm having a lot of fun over here in the military. So then I went back to full time, and did that for a while.
So what is like when you decide to go full time in the military? What's life like then? Are you like shipped to a base at that point in time? Do you have to like do more serious like physical training or like basic training, or do they cover that in the reserves?
Yeah, so in the reserves, there's like active reserves. There's people that are on just orders all the time. That was me. And then there's the normal part-time guys that are 1 week in a month or 2 weeks a year. So they're very, very part-time. I was the guy that was always on orders, always signing up for TDYs, going to temporary duty assignments, going to green flag, red flag, going to Germany, Hawaii. It was a rough time.
So I didn't even, this may be stupid of me, but I didn't even know you could be in the Army Reserves full-time.
Yeah, Air Force Reserves, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's guys that are government contractors, so they're not technically in the military, and then there's other people that are full-time.
So I guess this may be a dumb question, but if I'm not, if I'm in the Army Reserves or the reserves at any of the branches, and I want to be full-time, why wouldn't I just join like service full-on? What would be like the thing that would stop me from doing that?
Yeah, some people do, It's a different pace with the reserves, which a lot of people like. And reserves are interesting, too, because better or worse, right? A lot of times it's worse. But in the active world, you're at a base for 2-3 years, and then you're moving somewhere else, right? So there's a lot of churn. In the reserve world, sometimes you're waiting for somebody to die or retire ahead of you. Like that spot's taken, and they've been there for 5-10 years because it's locally mandated. You don't get moved around to different bases. So sometimes you have great leadership. Sometimes you have crappy leadership that's just been there forever, and no one likes to work with that person. But they're full-time, and hey, they've been there 10 years.
So if you're in the reserves, you're going to stay in your town or your location. They're not going to be like, hey, you're picking up and you're going to Texas next year.
Nope. Yeah, you sign up for that base.
I see. So that would be probably one of the big benefits and why people would do that. Stay close to their family, but still get some like military training experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you eventually like go from there to like, doing intel work like overseas? Like what's that path like?
Oh man, that was fun. So my home base was Fort Worth, Texas. So I was there, joined the military, see the world, basic training in San Antonio, specialized school in San Angelo, Texas, middle of nowhere, and then full time in Fort Worth. I was there for, I don't even know, 7 years, 8 years.
Mm.
And then I heard about this other unit that was doing foreign internal defense. So actually going out, speaking the language, and a lot of times civilian clothes, so no uniforms, nothing to identify me, and just 4 or 5 of us going out and actually training other militaries to essentially take care of their own problems, prevent the issue before we need to get involved. So I applied for it somehow. I don't know how I got selected for this thing, but went and I did that for about 3 4 years, so 11 years total, whatever that math is. And eventually they shut down that unit. So I said, I'm either going to get out and start my own business or go back to Big Blue Air Force. And I said, nope, I like the special ops life and I wanted to do something else in my life.
So where were you like based during that time period when you were kind of working with like these foreign countries and groups?
Yeah, so home base was here in Florida. That's where my house still is, like 7 years later. Been renting it out. Came back just for the summer. And that's in Eglin, Hurlburt area, so Pensacola area, and Destin. But I specialized in Arabic, so I went to Jordan quite a bit, Iraq, Syria, around that area. And I spent a lot of time working with those guys.
Paint a picture for me. What time was that, and like what were tensions like in the Middle East during that period, and what was the United States attempting to do?
Yeah, so this was probably near the end of ISIS in Syria. So we had a couple ISIS guys just tailing us forever. We knew who they were and what they looked like. But they were just kind of collecting on us. But most of that stuff was still in Syria a little bit, which is why I popped over there a few times. But yeah, that's the main thing. And then there was another war in Yemen with Saudi Arabia and Jordan was out there helping those guys. So my job was to train those guys, especially the Jordanian fighters and the pilots and the generals, to say, hey, like I get it that you're royal. Like literally, if you are a pilot, you are royal blood. You're amazing. You won the gene, lottery. But you got to work with the guys on the ground. And for some reason, the peasants on the ground, they did not want to talk to. So that was a big sticking point of teaching these guys. And also, it was fun, man. Like what we did was we took a air tractor, which is literally a crop duster, threw a camera on that thing, threw some Hellfire missiles on that thing, and then taught them how to fly it. It was awesome.
You said that pilots were royalty. You mean like actually they're part of like the royal family, and that's like how you become like a pilot?
Yeah, most of them had some kind of second cousin, aunt, uncle, some connection to the royal family. That's how they get those jobs. So they don't want to work. Their life's already set for them, but they are kind of required by family or for whatever reason to kind of put in that military service. So it was interesting trying to get them to see why they should work together. They just could not fathom actually working with the guy.
What was it like learning the language? How difficult was that?
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. My course, I had an expedited course, just me and one other guy with a very severe Iraqi woman yelling at us every day for about 10 hours a day for 10 months straight.
Jeez.
Just nonstop. Yeah.
So how long did it take you before you're like, oh, like, holy shit, I actually know this language. Like I can kind of speak it, I can kind of write it, and I feel comfortable. I assume they want you to be very fluent once you're going to go over there, because they don't want like this weird language gap when you're trying to teach or coach, or just like to just denote how different you are from them.
Yeah. It's funny. You think so, right? And I got decent. I could have conversations with people. I understood what we're talking about. We could talk about economic policies. I could kind of hold my own. But I never got fluent. And I think that would take me years, especially in Arabic. It's a very different language. And then what I learned was modern standard Arabic, which is kind of this beautiful poetry, Quran. It's the news. Every Muslim nation in the world can turn on the TV and have modern standard Arabic, but no one speaks it on the ground. So when I'd go there, I'd be like old English almost talking to them. So they got me. They understood what I was saying. They get some funny looks. They called me a poet a lot. But I didn't had a hard time understanding their slang, their vernacular of the local region. So that took longer for me to pick up on a lot of that stuff.
And is it just like a lot of slang, or is it the actual like pronunciation and dialect is quite different from region to region?
Yeah, pronunciation's a little bit different. Yeah, it's more French some places. Jordan had a lot of French aspects to it. Like if I go to the Gulf, like Saudi Arabia, I could probably obla with those guys a lot better than I did with the French aspect over there.
You said by the end of it you were just drinking tea. So like, how did life go from like super exciting learning this language? Now you're getting trailed by ISIS to like eventually. Did the luster just kind of wear off a little bit?
Man, it's funny. They trained us here like we were gonna go Rambo style. Like we're learning how to drive cars, pit each other, shoot and drive, run to the woods, do all this crazy stuff, pull out guns out of our backpack, armored vehicles, and then we get there and that's always a possibility. Again, there's like 4 of us and the whole country, right? Or that, yeah. So if something bad happens, we got to get out. But 90% of my time, you're just drinking tea and having conversations and building up these relationships. And part of the Arab culture there is you don't start talking business until cup 3. So it's 3 cups of tea, probably 5-6 times a day with different people meeting, asking about their kids, oh, that's great, he's in college and yada, yada, yada. And then an hour later, then we can start talking business and where we're at training and how, the relationships. And, it was awesome though. It was a crash course on negotiations for me. It was a crash course on, how people think and what motivates people. Because when you start getting down to, I call it your real why, right? Like as an entrepreneur, if you don't have your real why, like why you want to do something, you're not going to make it, man. I'm sorry. So by having these conversations with people where we didn't talk about the business stuff, we talked about what influenced them or what books they're reading or anything else, I was able to actually make pretty deep connections with a lot of individuals out there, and was able to do some pretty cool things where I still see some of these negotiations and peace things and trainings that I set up forever ago are still ongoing today, which is pretty awesome.
Interesting. So I kind of saw in your bio you were like doing like briefings for generals.
Yep.
What kind of things did you take away from that?
Oh man, the biggest one that is.
I assume that's for U.S. generals, right? Or is it not necessarily?
Mostly U.S. I did a lot of, I did a few UN things, and talked to a lot of generals in the Jordanian Air Force, as well as their army. But the biggest lesson here is I was the youngest guy ever to, as far as I know, to brief these 4-star, 5-star generals at this executive headquarter level brief. Very fortunate, very lucky to do that. I probably about pissed myself. I'll be honest with you, Alex. Like, it was nerve-wracking. You walk in there, I've got like 2 little bars on my arm. These guys are 4 stars, 3 stars, seeing everything. And you get in there and you realize that we're all humans, man. Like, I expected brilliance, and I'm sure they're brilliant. Don't get me wrong. But when I walked in there as a guy that's been in for 3 years or something like that, and then I was briefing them, and I knew more about the subjects than they did, and that just made me realize, like, holy cow. Like, we're all just people, and we're all just figuring it out, which helped me quite a bit today. Even now, when I go talk to hundreds of millionaires or billionaires and try to raise capital from them or do negotiations with, had an awesome opportunity to talk to the Indiana governor the other day. You just realize, hey, we're all just figuring this thing out,
So what do you think, like, having interacted with some of those 3- and 4-star generals, like, what do you think that those guys and gals have that like allows them to get to that point? Because I've talked to some other people in the military, and if you weren't ever in the military, I think maybe it's hard to understand just how many like levels there are.
Oh yeah.
Like once someone started listening, I was like, holy crap, like that's crazy. So like for those people to rise up those ranks, I mean, you have to do it for a long period of time. You have to do it high quality. You have to impress the right people, of course. Probably have to kiss some asses, just like everything.
Yep.
Like, what do you think separates those people who get to that level?
That's a great question. I think that comes to like a leadership thing for me. Yes, of course, you have to know the right people, and sometimes it's going to the right schools or whatever else. But I've met a lot of really bad leaders that did not have stars on their shoulders. I've not only met maybe one general that I didn't like as a human being, and every other one has just been a ton of empathy, a ton of like knowing how to you work with people, when to delegate, and how to lead. You know, so those individuals that do get those stars on their shoulders, I have the most respect for in the world because, like you said, they're in for 30 years doing this, and 30 years of them doing the right thing over and over and over again, and leading people in a successful manner. Uh, so yeah, it's the way I look at it. You know, even today with my own leadership style with our own company, it's just, you know, those guys were able to take very complex logistic operations, military operations, and simplify it down to a very, very simple, here's my commander's intent, this is what I want. And then now that intent, that simple idea, can get all the way down to the ground level, and everybody knows that they are all following in line with what one person's. It's a very, very simple idea. So these guys and gals have done everything right for years, put in the work, and have this innate ability to have very simple thoughts that everybody can understand and follow. I think that's the power of military is if you have anybody questioning that doesn't understand it, then you fail. So it's just got to be very simple. Take complex ideas, make them real simple.
Yeah, and I think what you said is what a lot of people who I've talked to that were in the military sort of said is that the best leaders aren't people who like the types that we see in like military movies who are like, no, 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 you got to do this. You know, you got to get this done for me, Jesse. It's actually like sounds like kind of the opposite. They're very like thoughtful and empathetic, and they really care about their people, and they like care about pointing them in the right direction. And to your point, yes, of course, every once in a while you do meet someone along the path who's like kind of an asshole. But it
Yeah.
sounds like based on what you saw, like a lot of those people just don't make it up the chain of command, like just being like
No.
difficult and, hard to work with and unfriendly to people. You got to be able to make your people trust you and believe in you. And that's the best way that I've heard to get things done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm sure your experience, you told me earlier, you have 50 employees. There's right ways to do things and there's wrong ways to do things. And
And you
it's,
and you learn on the
you learn
fly,
quick.
like,
Yep.
and this is like what I try to teach my managers and my leads is like, look, you have to lead and you have to go put yourself out there, and then you'll make the mistakes and you'll go, oh, well, that thing didn't work. And then you'll know not to do it in the future. But, whenever they come to me and they're like, my team's, really mad at me because whatever, like I have my phone out and I'm like, yep, this is a learning moment. Like I did that when I first started, like people start to get annoyed when you're distracted, when you're trying to lead them, and then you're asking them to be accountable to a thing that you're not actually accountable to yourself. So it's like, this is like 101. These are some of the things that you're going to quickly learn. But, a lot like I imagine that the military tries to train its leaders very thoroughly. I don't know that for a fact, but I would guess so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And there's different trainings you go just to be a leader, right? I was enlisted, so I did a few of those courses. I know the officers have their own courses they do to be a better leader. You learn from other people's mistakes. You're constantly studying what people have done before you. You're constantly looking at different heroes and people that have done amazing works in history and seeing how they led, what they did differently. So I think it's the culture around it of good leadership is pretty strong, especially those higher ranks.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of starting to learn. And we had someone come in like a coach, and he said one of his primary things that he wants to institute at companies that he comes in and helps is like continuous leadership training. Like he's like, what's your guys' continuous leadership training look like? And I was like, we don't really have continuous leadership training. He's like, well, that needs to change. He's like, because you can promote someone into a position, but you're really just setting them up for failure if they've never done that position before and you don't give them the tools to have success. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. If you're not hiring the professional that's done this thing and wants to, get paid $120,000 before, instead you're bringing the person and trying to move them up the org. Well, it's like, hey, if you don't train them in how to do that and continue to train them in how to do that, it's like, why would your expectation for them be that they're going to kick ass? It's like, there's really no basis for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't expect them to meet that. And that's why I think, again, it's that simple. Like, you've got to be able to tell them what you want done simply and let them run with it a little bit, especially if they come in with that experience. But a lot of times people's experience won't fit your company culture. That's happened to me. We've hired somebody that was on paper amazing and honestly pretty good at their job, but
Mm-hmm.
what they wanted us to do things, the way we want to do things constantly clashed, and it just took too long for us to kind of have it come to Jesus and like, okay, this is where we want to go and how we want to do it before we actually started working better together, right? You can't hire your way out of a problem almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you see any like frameworks or things, or did the military teach you any frameworks for leadership that you felt like were helpful, or did any of the generals that you really appreciated have any like frameworks? I know you say bring things down to the simplest, topic. Maybe that was the framework, but anything that you've seen that you're like, wow, that's really helpful. I could take that and use that, and whether it be my business or when I'm leading people on the ground.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something in particular right now. I've seen, of course, man, like military, we have to have a million acronyms for different
Right.
things and different frameworks.
Which sometimes you're like, this is so stupid. But then other times you're like, this is kind of helpful, actually. And the big thing, Jesse, is what I see is if I'm going to like train, again, my managers on how to do a thing, like you said, I want to make it simple. And if I want it done in a certain way, just like make it a checklist. Make it like hey, you're going to do these 5 bullet points every morning and just be prepared for it. Deliver them. Check in with everybody like on how the day is going based on your bullet points, at 2 or 3 o'clock. And then you're out, and it's like you did like a 80% successful leadership that day if you just do that and nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, you make it so they can't mess up.
Yeah.
Right? If you just follow what we agreed to do, you're already 90% there.
Yeah. So what was the decision like to exit the military and not continue on? Because I assume you could continue on with your military and maybe go for a higher rank, and I don't know when you get like a full military benefit, retirement and things like that. It sounds like you were in for a while, so it sounds like you probably weren't that far away from that. What was the thought process like there?
Yeah, so I did 11 years. And like I said, I was just going back to big blue Air Force or get out and start my own thing. It actually ended up working out really well because my brother and business partner, he was actually leaving the military at the same time. So he got medically released. So he was getting full retirement. So we started talking about, okay, we made a lot of great connections over the years. What if we started using this to buy real estate? At first it was subject to, something, but that's small ball, right? We did the math, and, I've flipped a bunch of houses. I've rented out my own house previously. And I did the math one day, and I was like, man, I think I net like $150, $200 a month, with everything else, CapEx and all that stuff held back on these houses. If I want financial freedom, like $10K a month, I'm like, this is like 70 something homes I got to buy. That's not freedom. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So we started talking about it and putting our connections together and who we knew. And we've realized after doing some YouTube university, reading some books, we learned about something called syndications, which is just pulling money together and start buying stuff. Mm-hmm. So instead of buying homes and doing subject to deals, what we did is we bought 2 mobile home parks. I think I put in like $15K, he put in like $25K, and then raised the capital from everybody else. And immediately we're making $6,000 a month. So,
all right, take me through that. First, take me through the decision to buy in on a mobile home park, because I've heard, and I have no idea if this is true, but I have heard that mobile home parks can be extremely profitable for real estate investors. But there's also like a stigma, like, hey, this guy owns a mobile home park, like, what's going on here, kind of thing.
Yeah, I've lived both those. So we like to get a little crazy, and we buy things that most people don't buy. A lot more work, but it's worth it in the end. So mobile home parks, yeah, absolutely. A lot of people don't want them because there's a stigma around them. So you can get them for cheaper, right?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Which means cash flow like crazy. Like they just bring you a ton of cash every single month. You buy a Class A brand new nice apartment complex, you're not gonna make any cash, but it's more guaranteed.
Right, it's very, very safe. That'd be like buying, the S&P 500. You're like, it's probably gonna work out, or buying Apple, buying blue chips, essentially.
Right. So makes sense. And so the exact opposite of that is mobile home parks, where you're gonna have some fun stories, but you also be making a lot of cash.
I believe that. And was that in Florida that you bought that mobile home park?
Arkansas. So that was me once a month. For probably a week or 2 of a month, I would drive up there 6-7 hours and work this mobile home park. Just working with very interesting individuals. I learned quickly that, hey, these guys that are picking up off the street to help me, demolish, rebuild, work on things, I had to pay them on Friday because they have habits.
Yep.
And those habits run out by Monday, and then we can start working again.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I've been in the construction industry. The old joke was like most of our labor was like Hispanic guys, and we'd go to the supplier, be like, "You guys have any white crews or anything?" And they'd be like, "Drug addicts? Do you mean drug addicts? Are you looking for drug addicts?" Like, no, we're not. No, that's not what we're looking for.
Yep, that was my experience.
Rough and tumble folks. But hey, man, you put a hammer in their hands, and you're like, "Holy shit!" This guy can go.
Hey. If you could channel that energy, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Right. So, like, you had to clean up this first mobile home park?
Yeah. So, a lot of these things we buy, and there's old mobile homes that are run down, right? We don't want to be a slumlord, so we pull out all the old stuff. Actually, this was my biggest mistake and one of my biggest lessons learned. So I've done flipping, like I've done remodeling most of my life, just growing up. We were constantly remodeling my house. My brother-in-laws had remodeling businesses. So at 15, 16, like I was always out remodeling, tile work, whatever else. So I know that part. I get it. And I hired crews that knew how to do that stuff. So I had this brilliant idea, and I've made this great deal where there's 10 mobile homes that I can get for free, essentially. Like, sweet. We'll just spend 10 grand, fix them up, and then now this thing's worth like 30 grand or something. Makes sense, sell it, and then we'll just make money off the land because you pay for the lot rent. Didn't work that way, right? So lesson learned here is I thought I knew a lot about this, but I didn't know mobile homes. So my plan, like if I just had somebody, a good mentor, to shift me over 2 inches, it would have been fine. But I didn't realize as we're gutting these things, as we're doing it, mobile homes are, especially the old ones, are notorious for electrical problems. So if I just replace that wire, it would have saved us basically spent around $200K on remodeling. We lost about $1 million of valuation. That first one. Ouch.
And all you needed to do was just wiring changes, really?
Yeah. So then, that and some coating on the roof on the little gutters. But yeah, that would have been it. It would have been, a few $100 more per home. It wouldn't have been crazy. But then slowly each one of those went out, and getting an electrical crew in there, it would have been $20K per home to get it fixed. So all 10 of those homes slowly just fell off, and we lost that money.
And
Ouch.
In the states that you're working, are there unique rules around mobile home parks? Because that's kind of what I always heard, is that like you can buy this lot and then you can rent it out, and if the person like doesn't pay their rent, you can kind of just like take possession of their trailer or their unit in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so they own the mobile home. You don't want to own the mobile home, right? Because especially older ones, a lot of maintenance. So they buy the home and then they rent the space.
Got it.
So if they don't pay for the space, then you can evict them. Most people will leave the home.
Right.
So you'll have some slumlords, some bad guys that's their deal. Like they'll let people move in for relatively free, and then knowing that they can't pay, or let anybody move in, and then they're just there to take the home from people. Because it costs like $4,000 to move those things.
Right, and most people don't have that, especially if you're living in a place where the incomes are lower anyways.
Yeah, when you're paying $400 a month for lot rent just for the ground, you probably don't have $4,000 or $5,000.
Interesting. So after that kind of first mobile home deal, are you thinking, hey, like we're onto something with this mobile home kind of lot business, or are you thinking, oh geez, I don't know if I want to get into that again?
Yeah, so we had our own property management company at one point. So we slowly grew this thing up. Goal was always to get to nicer apartment complexes, nicer things that are a little more stable, a little more sexy for potential investors, right? Not a lot of investors want to do mobile home parks, like you said. Even though cash flow is amazing, they want to have their money tied up in something else. So eventually we got up to about 1,400 units, probably about 50-50 mobile home parks as well as apartment complexes, but they're all in the affordable space. So we're talking about Section 8, some HAP contracts, things like that.
So when you say 1,400 units, so 1,400, if you're talking half is mobile home, so that's 700 units or so. I got to imagine that's far more affordable than buying like an apartment complex with like 50 doors or something like that. I got to imagine that's like 10x the cost, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive for the apartment complex. But then interesting, like as we started, we're begging for 20K here and to invest it for other people, right? To buy another apartment complex and buy another mobile home park. But as soon as we realize that if we go over 100 units, like an apartment complex, oh my gosh, different clientele. Now we have people talking to us that want to invest because this is what they do all the time. And it's a 100K investment. It's not somebody
who doesn't really do that, and you're trying to beg, this guy who owns a small restaurant for 10 grand.
Right. Yeah, I don't want terrible conversations. I've had a lot of investors freak out and want their money back because that was their 20K, then something happened, and like, dude, I don't have it. Like it's in the property.
Yeah.
Once we sell it, you'll get it back, and I'm paying you back every month or every quarter. You're getting your return, but yeah.
So when you buy a mobile home park, what are your responsibilities for maintenance? I got to think there's not that much maintenance, is there?
No, that's the beautiful part about it. So you may only be making $400, $500 per month per spot, right? But as long as you don't own any of the homes, your maintenance is mowing, right?
Road upkeep, essentially.
Yeah, it's really very, very minimal. Otherwise, it's just, but they take care of their own homes, issues there they take care of. Even then, we have some places where we require them to mow their own yard. They have their own lawn equipment. It's nicer places. We just keep it clean and just manage it effectively. Just manage people.
What's the expectation on like payback for a mobile home park? So, I mean, I think you said your first deal was $35,000. That maybe wasn't the total cost of the lot. But what are you expecting payback period to be like for something like that? And how would that compare and contrast to like an apartment complex?
Yeah. So it's pretty similar at the very end. It's just how you get there, really. We always try to do around 5 to 7 year deals for the market, right? So if it's really hot right now, cool, let's sell maybe year 4 instead of year 6, and that's why we give ourselves a little bit of space there. But yeah, so that's kind of the payback period during that. Again, cash flow though, your cash on cash returns are gonna be much, much higher, especially quarterly. For mobile home parks than it is apartment complexes. We're still in the affordable space, which is kind of the sweet spot. So you still get cash flow, but you also get the appreciation on the back end. So if you're looking for apartment complex, you get a big lump payment at the end, more likely than just
when you sell.
And smaller, like 8% cash on cash per year versus a mobile home park, you're probably looking at 12 or more % on your money.
And then when you sell that mobile home park, the appreciation might not nearly be as big as like your apartment complex.
Right. Yeah. They usually go up because we buy places that are run down. So we buy for dirt cheap, clean it all up, fill it up with other homes, sell those homes, or have people bring their own home in. So the appreciation is decent when you do it that way. But it's the same concept as buying an empty apartment complex and then renovating it all up.
Interesting.
It's like a Burr method if you know it. Buy, rehab, refinance, or rent, refinance, repeat.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you start to and maybe explain to me and those listening like the deal syndication process where you're like, wait a minute, like I need these to get bigger. Now I'm talking 100, doors of an apartment complex, and then maybe just talk through like what your responsibility in a deal like that is if you're going to go out and find investors. Because I assume a lot of these early ones, it's like, hey, I'm hoping I make a lot of the money, if not most of the money, on this, income and then sale.
Yeah, and you do. As we call it the general partner, the person that actually does all the work. You do get a higher multiple than your investors do, right? They might get a 2.5, and I might get like a 4x on our money, just because we do all the work. But for them, they invest and they go sit on the beach, on their couch. It's truly passive income, and you get the write-offs for taxes, and you don't do a single thing. So great for them, right? So in the beginning, there's a lot of education of like how this works and the structure, and here's all the contracts to show your money's protected as much as possible. It's life, things happen, right? I can't predict COVID, right? Bought a property and rehab, and our GC literally died of COVID like 2 weeks after we closed. Can't control that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that changes things. Anyways, but when you get the bigger apartment complexes, and now our equity ticket requirement is I mean, the one we're looking at right now is 50 million, right?
How
That's one
how many doors does that get you? 50 million.
913 doors in San Jose for a development deal.
I mean, oh, so it's development. So it's like new construction,
Yep.
ground up.
New construction.
Well,
Yep.
that's got to be a hell of a project and a lot of regulations to jump through, city to jump through.
Right. But say it's so much bigger now that we go to one family office and they said, yes, we're in. So we have 2 different family offices that say, yep, we're in. And they do 10 of those a month.
Jeez.
So that's one check. A lot easier to manage one investor than it is to have. I think we had one project with like 50, right? Those calls are fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, right. And
Yeah.
also you're dealing with a professional who's done this time and time and time again. The nice thing there would be, if you impress them and you do a good job, then they'll be like, yeah, just count me in for the future ones. But also, it's
Exactly.
the old adage that like, the biggest clients, cause the littlest stir, and then the smallest clients, they have the most questions, and they're so confused why you didn't return their email within 12 hours. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yep. Yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah, we've had guys refinance their house to invest with us. I'm like, holy cow, you can't be doing that.
Yeah.
We've had people sell their cars. Like, no. Like, hey, I appreciate your trust
That's
in me,
great
but
salesmanship
no.
on you're selling too good, Jesse.
No, like, holy cow, you cannot be doing that. So we've learned to say no to a lot of people over the years, and because it's not worth it. You get somebody that freaks out, or we had somebody wire us. This happened like 3 months ago. They wired us $100K. Next day said, oh crap, I didn't tell my wife and she's freaking out. Can you send that back to me? Okay, dude. Yeah,
So-
not working with you anymore.
What do? You give that back and say, hey, this.
Yeah.
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 So
But luckily, if we close, that money would have been gone, right?
Right.
Then I can't get it back to you. I either got to buy you out, or we got to talk to somebody else into buying you out.
yeah.
So yeah.
So as you're scaling up, what are the kind of things that you are learning throughout? You're going from a mobile home park to an apartment complex to bigger deals. Like, what's that process look like? Because I think we kind of fast forwarded through probably like a decade or half a decade of work building up, and I'm sure a million different things that you learn along the way.
Yeah, it's that old adage you brought up, right? The bigger the project we have, we thought it wouldn't be true this way, but it is. It's easier to raise capital, and if we have a big enough project, now we can make enough money where we can hire really, really good staff.
Wow. Yeah.
That's another problem we had. We buy these apartment complexes that are 50 units. That's the worst size in my mind. 50 to 100 is the worst size because, especially in affordable housing, a little bit older, right? You're just gonna have issues. So you really need a full-time staff there, but you can't afford a good one at least. So if you have a really nice or a bigger 150, 200 unit apartment complex, now you can have a good staff there that can handle the problems themselves and self-manage a little bit better. You can hire the really expensive, awesome development company that looks at 900 units and says, oh, no problem, we do this all the time, right? Now it just becomes easier and easier. So, of course, you got to kind of prove yourself and go up those step by step. But we've always been crazy and kind of bit off more than we can chew and somehow pulled it off, So
Yeah.
starting off with just me out there with a hammer and some methods.
Well, that's a lesson that we're also having to learn is that the highest quality people, the highest quality like labor, like it may return 3 or 4 or 5 or 6x above what you're asking them to do. And not only that,
Absolutely.
like the actual return, but just like the headache that's off of you all of a sudden. Like I don't have to like micromanage this person. And that's like a cultural shift that we're really trying to make. And I'm trying to like get everyone at the company to understand like, hey, like one of the cheapest people is not maybe the best like option as an investment. Like the difference between the $50,000 a year person and the $100,000 a year person, it may be like 4x for the $100,000 person improvement over this. So it's like, just think about the return on investment. But I get it because everyone's like really scared. They're like, geez, $100,000. Like, what if they don't perform? Like, what if we hire this person and it doesn't work out? And it's like, I get that. I totally do. But we've kind of just, sounds like where you were a long time ago, just like bootstrap it. Let's do it all ourselves. Like, let's swing the hammer ourselves. And then you get to a point you're like, this is not the way to do this. And it's hard because you have to mentally shift from like that did actually work in the past. That was the thing that helped us get to where we are now. but it's not any longer. And the things you got rewarded for then are not going to reward you any longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lesson I keep learning over and over again, right? Because even when we start a new chapter where now we're like, hey, let's really focus on marketing efforts. Okay, how do we do this? Instead of finding the right marketing person, we try to figure it out ourselves and hire virtual assistants. And, it doesn't work as well as it could have been if we just went with the big, expensive company in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know the exact solution to get over that. But you also have to be in a luxurious position where it's like, I can afford this high-end marketing agency. If you can't afford them, then it's like, well, shit, I got to do this myself,
Exactly,
question answered. But once you can afford it, then it's like, is this really the right thing to do, that we do this ourselves? And that's tough. That's been hard for us to get out.
Yeah, growing pains, right?
Yeah.
Always a new level.
So talk to me about how affordability became a big part of your mission, because it sounds like you have really taken that to heart. How do I make houses affordable and help communities out? And that's like a huge conversation. We're in Columbus, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio is like one of the best real estate markets, according to Bank of America and these various studies. But everyone's like, geez, things are really expensive. And it's like nothing compared to like Miami, Phoenix, New York, Chicago. But, now you can't really buy a single family home for like less than $300,000, whereas that used to be like 150. Right. Just like in 2017, I bought a house for $117,000 in 2017. And that house is worth like double that, at least, if not more, maybe almost close to 3x that. So like that's for like a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 960 square foot house. So people are like, well, geez, like I can't even get on the board now for like a kid, like if I want to have wife kid thing. So maybe talk to me about how you think about that.
Yeah. So this is something that means a lot, right? We're not doing anything that doesn't have some kind of affordability component anymore. We just learned about it, right? We know this area, and it's a kind of a niche space in real estate, so it makes sense. But also, growing up, at one point in my life, I'm the 7th, right, kid, the youngest. We had 9 of us in like a trailer we were living in.
Jeez.
Like a pull-behind trailer, right? So I didn't grow up super affluent. As I got older, I was middle class probably by the time I graduated high school, so I was doing better. My dad finally got a degree and kind of bootstrapped himself and us out of that situation. But I mean, we didn't have running water at one point, and he put a fire underneath a horse trough. So as long as you didn't sit in the middle, you'd be all right.
Jeez.
Wouldn't burn your butt.
Yep.
So I've always cared about that. I have family that are still on WIC and food stamps and things like that. They shouldn't also have 12 kids. That's crazy.
12 is a lot.
That's a lot of kids. That's more than a football team. It's insane.
Yeah. That's almost 3 basketball teams. Jeez.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. No, honestly, best kids, awesome people. It's kind of funny. That biggest family, is the best behaved.
In fairness, I don't know how wealthy you have to be to cover 12 kids, because like that's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Hey, the birth rate's declining, so I'm glad somebody's working on it.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, so it's always meant a lot. As we go to these communities, we would, again, we'd kick out all the bad people. We'd kick out all the mobile homes that are torn or are bad shape, or just the really bad apartment complexes and the units in there. And we'd renovate it. So just that process, you kind of see and feel the difference, where one of our metrics is our kids outside playing. Because that's something we realized after a while. We kept buying these places and started working on them, renovating them, cleaning it up. And then one day you realize, like, oh, kids are playing outside. They've never felt safe enough to do that before. So like started clicking in my brain, like, holy cow, like we're having an impact here. Like we're helping change this community. And then the last time it clicked, like this was during COVID, we had this resident, Cindy was her name. Now, Cindy, this type of person that walks in the room, bright smile, lights it up. She also would go in and steal our coffee, right? So she just bright smile, walk into the office, go pour herself a cup of coffee, chit chat, and leave. And you don't even realize that you don't even care because it's Cindy and she's awesome, right? If I did that, I'd probably get in trouble, right? Alex, they wouldn't let you in the door. So one day she stops paying, and by law, I'm supposed to evict Cindy. She has a good job, right? So what's going on? So reach out. We find out that Cindy has cancer, stage 4 lung cancer. She's death sentence, right? She has 3 months left to live. Again, by law, I'm supposed to evict Cindy. So I was like, no problem. Hey, this is COVID. There's tons of free money out here for residents. Nothing applied to her because she had a good job. A good job she just lost because that treatment, that treatment they give you for that stuff is poison, right? So she was so sick she couldn't even go to work. She was so sick she barely left her home. She didn't buy groceries. She didn't do anything. So what I realized, is like I just can't evict her, right? We got to figure something out. Okay, so what we did is Star, my asset manager, and myself, we just picked up the phone and started calling every nonprofit we could. We got to find some kind of support. It took me about 20 plus phone calls to find somebody specifically for lung cancer that could actually brought her support, brought her food, brought her legal, so actually helped her with the power of attorney, helped her pass down will and testament, flew in her family to see her before she passed. So it's not a good story as in she survived. It's a good story that through legwork, just by going out there and doing some legwork and finding the right person, the right group, we were absolutely able to make a massive change in her life, in her family's life. And that's when the final click happened for me, right? When I hear people say oh, I'm an impact investor, I'm like, okay, cool. There's nothing wrong with solar, but a lot of those guys are solar, right? But to the single mom with 2 kids, to the Cindy out there, they don't care about solar panels on the roof. 66% of the population right now, Alex, 66% is paycheck to paycheck. It takes one bad thing for you to lose your home. So that's why we do the affordable component. And what we do now is we partner. Actually, out of that, I was able to create, this is true, I have a packet of about 50 different nonprofits and who they support and DFW. So if something ever goes wrong, now our residents have access to that. We're developing an app right now with AI that will evaluate you, where your situation is, and then help connect you to those nonprofits, help connect you to the daycare services you need for your kids, right? Because if you have young kids, you can't go get a job. Or if your babysitter calls out, you got to leave your job. It's hard to have a job if you can't care for your own kids, or you don't know how to feed their kids, or you're not able to. So the AI we're doing now is, we call it Percy, the Personal Success Companion, which is giving people a blueprint of how to actually take that next step to do that 6-month certification where you make $55,000 a year as an LPN, right? To actually change their lives for good. So that's what we're focused on now. We do a lot of public housing. We're doing public-private partnerships. But moreover than that, we provide these wraparound services to people through our own nonprofit that does not hurt our investors. If anything, it boosts our property to help the people and meet them where they're at.
When you say public housing or public-private partnerships, yeah. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, so crazy statistic. The biggest slumlord in America is America.
Not shocking.
Yeah.
And
not shocking.
I've heard that certain, Section 8 housing, right? Certain areas, this qualifies as Section 8.
Yeah, so there's 2 different things. There's public housing. So it's 900,000 units that are owned by local, federal governments, public housing authorities. So those are different than Section 8. Those are just public housing.
Okay,
right?
so the federal government owns a building, whatever, somewhere in Brooklyn, and that their landlord is the federal government, or would it be the state of New York, or would it be like a city?
It's the state, usually. Usually it's state or the local public housing authority, right? The federal government releases dollars to the state, which releases dollars to the public housing authorities, which owns the land. So there's 900,000 units, but 267,000 of those, roughly 30%, last year failed a livability assessment.
That doesn't sound good.
Right, because they're just old, and we don't reinvest in stuff like this, right?
So how much do you have any idea, how much that public housing profits or costs the American taxpayer? Do you have any insight into that? Is it profitable for the U.S. government to be this landlord?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, I know the budget completely. Its total is about $70 billion that the HUD budget is. So they're not really making any money off this, and we estimate it based off the age of these properties, how many units are down, the cost of renovation through contracts. It's like $300 billion that they need to reinvest. right?
Yeah,
So they're not going. It's not going to happen.
the reason I ask is just because I'm just very skeptical of the government usually, and like where are our taxpayer dollars going? And this sounds like a great program, but it's not a great program if it's fundamentally unstable and it's like going to explode in 10 years or 20 years or 15 years. If you tell me like these buildings are literally going to fall down unless we invest $40 billion, and then Congress is fighting over whether or not they can have that money, and then we direct it to X country you want to insert here. I'm just a lot more in favor of the free market, but I do understand that when it comes to housing, there are some issues there.
Yeah, so we're working with. We're very fortunate to have some pretty good connections at the federal and local level. In Las Vegas is our first pilot program we're doing there.
Okay.
So what we're doing is setting up what's called a public-private partnership, where now we come in, we do the operations, we do all the renovations, we pay for a lot of that, but then it's subsidized by the government. So instead of bringing like 30% cash to a deal, now we bring like 15 or 10% cash. The other part comes to the government for us to do it. So we take the heavy lifting, we take the burden, most of the expenses, we take the loan, right, which is government backed as well as a lower interest rate. And then we get some of the upside as well, because now our tenant is the U.S. government. So if the sky falls tomorrow, depending on what news organization you listen to, we're fine. Yeah.
Interesting. So, but you said you don't own the property in that instance? You're like the management company? Is that kind of right?
So we're looking at two different ways. I think the first one we're going to do is going to be kind of like a triple net lease, right? Where Starbucks doesn't own the building, right? They just have a 99-year contract. So that's what we do. It would be a 99-year contract to the Public Housing Authority to put people in there.
Got it.
They run that part. We make the money off the residents and the government, and then we get subsidized for the development.
And then you're going to pay them some net lump sum. But you said you hold the loan or the government holds the loan?
So we hold a loan through a bond to the government. So we can't have private equity or private debt against the public housing.
Interesting.
So it'd be a lower rate. Sometimes those are revenue bonds, which means we don't pay anything until we're making money. Not too bad. And then it's a 99-year lease. So it's pretty much guaranteed.
Right. And so what's the incentive for the federal government here to do this program?
Yeah, so they can't afford to fix their own issues. Right now. Frankly, just they're broke, right? It's hundreds of billions of dollars. So now we come in and then we get that debt against their own bond, right? They make money off of us paying the debt service. And then we provide the service of actually going out and renovating, or most likely just demolishing and rebuilding.
Oh, really?
Redeveloping.
It's that bad?
Yeah.
In this particular,
it's that old.
This particular one?
Yeah, anything built over before 1980 has like these old cast iron pipes, and it's a massive issue. They're falling apart everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, you can Google it. It's cast iron pipes. Is
it like dangerous
apart.
to drink out of them, or is it like elevated levels of iron, or not really?
I wouldn't be surprised. I've never Googled that. But if you look at, they just shatter. They're supposed to last forever, and they just absolutely fall apart.
Oh,
so
yeah. I'm looking at some images.
Talking about sewage everywhere.
These are just like rusted to heck, and they're just like, like you said, kind of splitting and falling apart.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. So at a certain point, it's more expensive to replumb the whole building than it is to just demolish it and rebuild it.
Because you probably got to get into all the walls and ceilings and everything.
And then you're uncovering who knows what else when you're doing all that stuff, right? So
yeah.
Interesting.
So then how do you define like affordable housing? That seems like a word that gets thrown around, but like, is there a specific definition to that? And then I'm assuming the government's like, hey, hold on, like if you're going to find the tenants, like there's specific requirements that you can't, make their price $2,000 a month kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No. So public housing, they control the price point. They control how much the tenants pay. It's a percentage of their income.
Percentage of their income.
All that.
Okay.
Yep. And then they subsidize the rest. The government does. Public housing. Now, if we're talking about choice vouchers, which is Section 8, those are controlled by the fair market rent, which is a local rating. And that's how much the government will pay completely to rent to a private landlord, essentially. So
maybe talk me through like Section 8. So instead of, I'm in a government housing, then what does it mean if I'm renting in Section 8?
Yeah, so you sign up for the program. Usually takes a couple of years to get approved for Section 8. Yeah, and then the government would just pay for your rent. Usually you still have to pay like $50, $100 a month, depending on some kind of equation they have, but they'll just pay for it. So as a landlord, it sounds awesome because it's mailbox money. You're guaranteed to get paid by the government. It's supposed to happen every month, right? Sometimes they shut down or something, something crazy happens. Yeah, I've been there. But yeah, and then that's it. So you have a resident that you don't have to worry about them paying, except for the $50 or whatever it is, their small portion is, and the rest is mailbox money. If you know how to work with people in Section 8, if you know how to do all the processes, it's pretty good. I've had some of my best residents ever have been Section 8. Some of my worst ones have been Section 8.
Right.
Because they know they can get away with stuff because their rent's covered, and they don't think you know what you're doing because a lot of people don't know what they're doing. But the thing is, it takes some years to get on that program, and then all you have to do is evict them with cause, and they will never be able to get back on that program again. Or they can, it's like a couple year wait, but then it's, then it's a whole process again. So it's yeah, they can lose it.
Is it difficult to evict someone on Section 8, or is it as easy as, or even easier than standard eviction processes?
Usually it's a little bit more difficult, just time-wise changes a little bit, but it depends. It's state by state specific. Like in Texas, I can evict somebody in 3 days for non-payment. I don't do that, but by law, yeah.
Or if maybe they're damaging the unit or something like that.
Yeah, I think Texas has one of my favorite laws. If somebody goes streaking, it's you can immediately evict them. Like you should lock them out.
I guess the question would be, how can you prove that, right?
Yeah, and also, where did that law come from? Like every law has a weird story behind it.
Well, you've been in real estate long enough. You could probably imagine, hey, excuse me, Mr. Landlord, there's a naked man outside of our building. I think there's something weird happening. You need to come down here.
Yeah.
So what are the other things that you think can be done to help with affordability?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a big question too. There's a lot that needs to get done and needs to get changed. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm an economist. I don't know interest rates, if we need to drop those, what the repercussions of that. I don't think that's going to be a good thing personally, because price goes up everywhere else. But it's a massive, massive issue. I mean, we look at people that were buying homes, even the 70s, like the average home price was 3 times your income per year. And now it's like 5 or to 10% times for your income, right? Your average person's making, median income is like 55, 60 in the US. Now the average home price is like 300, right? Right around there, probably higher. Yeah. So it's a massive, massive issue. I'm not sure. We have a supply issue. We have a lot of these properties that are just falling apart issue. We have an infrastructure issue. But we also have baby boomers that are about to cause a lot more availability would be the nicest way to say that. So I'm not sure.
Do you think the housing restriction, development restrictions are causing a part of the issue, like the not in my backyard thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff, and like the rent control issue, which doesn't help anything either. Where there's been, I think only one city actually went all the way through with it in Minnesota, where they did rent control, where hey, you can only increase the rent by I think it was like 3%, if I remember the story correctly, year on year. Well, cool, that sounded well and good, but all of a sudden it didn't make sense for developers to come in and build anymore. Or people to come in and buy and rehab anymore, because you are counting on your income going up, like usually it's 5% per year to match, just increase the expenses and the depreciation of the dollar. So
taxes.
Yeah, so if it's negatively, exactly. So all of a sudden, if your expenses are going up, but your income's not going up at the same level, then all of a sudden it doesn't make sense to develop, doesn't make sense to buy anymore. So a lot of developers, a lot of real estate guys left, and all of a sudden those properties started going downhill and crime went way up in that city because of rent control. So there's other pieces to this, right? There's greed, a lot of corporate greed out there, but you got to incentivize people to come in and invest. And the best way I see that is through programs like the what is it? The Chicago 2.0 program, where Chicago has all these buildings that are just vacant. So I can't remember the figure, but it's massive number, hundreds of billions of dollars, the income that they're not getting from taxes. So what they did is they incentivized people to come in and said, look, we won't, we'll give you grants to come into this area. We'll help pay for stuff. We'll also not charge you taxes for the first 5-10 years, right? All of a sudden, holy cow, now it makes sense to come in and develop because taxes are one of the most expensive parts, right? And then now in year 5 or whatever, Chicago can now start recouping all those property taxes that it wasn't getting anyways, right? Now it's starting to actually make a profit. So there's different ways to do it. But by increasing that supply, then all of a sudden now the demand goes down, right? More, so the prices come down.
Do you have any feelings about like BlackRock coming in and trying to buy up houses in America? Is that overblown, like a good story, but not really that impactful?
I don't know, man. Like they own over 30%. Well, not BlackRock in particular, but hedge funds own over 30% of the rental homes in Texas. Like it's about that level in most states now. It's insane.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah. So I don't think it's overblown, but that's just where we're at, right?
So I guess the question would be, is a solution to bar or ban them from doing that?
I guess what would that change?
You probably have to go to smaller real estate invested. You might be too big. You might not be able to buy a house like that.
Yeah, but I guess that the issue in my mind is affordability, where people can't buy a home, right? They don't have that 5% to come up with to buy a home. So if the supply went up that much, all of a sudden they had to sell all their homes, and that would drive prices down, maybe. But if people still can't afford to buy the home, then they're still going to rent. So I guess it'd be renting from people with 5 homes or 10 homes, and not these people, giant corporations with hundreds of thousands or whatever. So probably better for businesses, right? So I'd support that, but I don't think it's going to change people being able to afford a home until we increase the supply enough where it actually brings the prices down.
How do you feel about the interest rates? Specifically, the Fed just deciding, oh, this is our interest rate.
Yeah, that sucked. Yeah, as a real estate guy, that really, really sucked the last few years. It jumped up so much that it just killed. I don't know a lot of syndicators that are alive still. Most of those guys just died because as a syndicator, you usually make your money when you buy the property, and then you kind of do okay the rest of the time through some asset management fees. But the rest of it, it's the big punch is the acquisition fee you get. So a lot of those guys just had unsound business practices, where any stress, where all of a sudden now, if you have a floating rate, interest rate, right? Like for example, we were paying $40,000 a month at one of our properties for our mortgage, and it went over 120.
Yeah, because it's just stair-stepping that rate every 3 months or 6 weeks.
Yeah, so that's 80,000 more of expenses we weren't planning on. Holy cow! Yeah, we're still alive, but that was painful. It still is painful.
Thoughts that the government doesn't need to be the rate setter. Like I had an economist on, we did like a 3-hour and change conversation, and his stance is like the government needs to be involved in this, and I'm just kind of like, why? Like, why can't a bank set a rate that seems appropriate to them? Like your rate could be different from mine. Like, what's the problem with that? Why wouldn't we just analyze these things independently? Why does the federal government need to start by lending to the bank at a fixed rate so that you can go out and it's just, I don't know. That's just me though.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Yeah. Yeah. We should start a bank, right? Yeah. Well, Jesse, is there anything that we didn't cover that you really want to hit on, man?
No, I think that's it. It's just, I just want to hit that we can have a lot bigger impact than what most people think, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. So just kind of be mindful of what we're doing and how we're making money, and being able to look yourself in the mirror and being happy with how we did it. It's important to me.
Well, where can people catch up with you, Jesse?
Absolutely. Hey, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jesse-Sells. Also on Instagram at the Jesse Sells, and yeah, probably the best place, or at impactgrowthcap.com.
Impact Growth Cap. If someone's got a wad of cash burning a hole in their pocket, that's where they can go spend it.
There you go. Yep.
Sweet, Jesse. Thank you so much, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.